a lot of entrepreneurs are, and race car drivers are much the same. It's like, it's that determination to get it done no matter what.
Welcome to the Motorsports and Driver Development Show. My name is Katie.
And I'm Keto.
And today we are joined with Jason Bailey, who is a super experienced rally driver, and we're really excited to get into all of your wisdom and experience. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. There's lots of time in these crazy times, so happy to talk cars with somebody. My wife and kids are surely not interested in me talking about cars anymore, and
that may explain why we've gotten some more yeses than we expected. Well, this is awesome. I think before we get into the racing, we'll start with the fact that on the side of one of your cars, in big letters, there is an ad, some sponsorship from a video game. It's Trailer Park Boys. And
Trailer Park Boys is our big game right now, but we just launched a game a week and a half ago for Cheech and Chong. So, Keto and I, being men of a certain age, surely identify with that historic IP. But we also have a game for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. We're launching a game next week for the Goldbergs. And then we have a few other, being, Vancouver boys, we have a whole bunch of weed-based stuff, Pot Farm, Bud Farm, Idle Tycoon. So we have a whole lot of different games that we run out of our studio here in Vancouver, and been blessed to be successful throughout this. And right now with the Rona running wild, everybody's locked in their house and they have nothing else to do but play video games. So we're super lucky and privileged to be in an industry that's actually thriving through all of this. And also lucky enough to have a technology set up where all of my people are able to work from home. And so we're all still working. We're all doing well. We're really lucky and privileged in that sense. I know there's a lot of people struggling real hard out there right now.
Yeah, it is really amazing when you think about the technologies we have in place that make it possible to do all these things. And we're able to just kind of keep chugging along in some ways. Sometimes it blows my mind. But I would love it if you talked a little bit about your journey from where you started to having your own company that puts these games out. Because I think it's really interesting. And when people think about the journey to get from nothing to racing, it's really similar.
Yeah. A lot of sacrifice, a lot of late nights, a complete disregard for hours of operation or, a work ethic even, like sometimes, a lot of entrepreneurs are, and race car drivers are much the same. It's like, it's that determination to get it done no matter what. And, Rallye is a great analogy for that. You're going to run into nothing but roadblocks, nothing but challenges, oftentimes completely out of your control, or random, and you need to fight through it. And, the famous press on regardless, is something that spans both entrepreneurship and rally very much because, I can share countless stories of mornings I woke up with my fingers crossed, hoping that it all still existed, and, fights and battles and stress levels through the roof to get through something. And it's the same thing with rally, the process of, preparing the car, getting to the event, getting through recce, getting your notes cleaned up, and then getting to the start line is such a massive undertaking. People just think of the race and think of, that it all starts the minute that light goes green. And there is so much that goes on well before that. And it's the same thing, people look at our games, like the Cheech and Chong game that we launched last week. And, arguably it's an overnight success. It suddenly goes from not existing to existing, and, many people are playing it and it's making money and and people look at that and go, wow, it's that easy. It's like, no. There's literally, first, 15 years of working in the industry to get us to the knowledge point of all of this, but also just the last year of a lot of prep from a lot of very talented technical people, creative people, logistics people, and the same thing goes into Rallye, like the engineering talent to get your car ready, the logistics to get the car there and ready to go and on the start line at the right time, the relationship between me and my co-driver to prepare for the race so that when we're there and when we're like that light goes green, that we're really ready for it.
Yeah. 100%. We deal with similar things with putting events on, where I heard someone say this one time, and I just kind of repeat it periodically, which it takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
See all the buildup that goes to it. They just think like, oh, you turned a switch on and now you have this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I went to that event. I've been to many of Tito's events. They always run smooth. They're always great. How hard can this be?
Exactly. We've literally heard that comment before.
Yeah.
So how did you,
anybody can.
Exactly. How did you get into rally? How did you get into racing?
So I've always been a car guy since I was a kid, right? And so, and I was always, partial to early 70s European cars. So a couple of my favorite cars as a kid, as a teenager, were everybody else, especially, I'm a redneck, grew up in trailer park, that everybody liked their big Chevys and Fords, but I always liked the little Saabs and the Renault. One of my first cars was a Renault. I was super stoked on it. I remember I was looking for parts for my Renault and it broke down, and I ran across and kind of digging through the junkyard looking for parts, and I ran into an old Saab 9.6, and it was a early mid 60s one, and it had the 2-stroke, and it had a little sign on the window. It said lifetime guarantee on the engine. And this was the 80s when nothing was good. Like cars in the 80s, not its best era. And so I was like just really impressed that a car company would give a true lifetime warranty on an engine, not the lifetime warranties we see now with the lifetime being 40,000 kilometers. But a true. And so that's one of the times where I was like, oh, that's really cool. And so I started kind of looking into Saabs more and getting into them. And then, as many people know, in the late 60s, early 70s, Saab was the king of rally. And so that's what kind of introduced me to rally as a sport. And of course, late 80s, the Group of ARA, it was the height of rally sport. So, I was familiar with the Audis and the Group B cars that were winning at that time. And then, time goes on, you gotta, jobs, family, everything else. My family's big now. My kids are 22 and 26. And so, and also I've been very fortunate in business and have been able to, build some very successful businesses, sell them, and start the new ones. And this again, the 10-year overnight success in the making is 20 years. And so was lucky enough to have the means to go out and do this. And so I bought an old Saab, did exactly what I would tell every up and coming rally driver now not to do. And that is built my own car on the first car, and had a ton of fun. It's a super cool car, madly in love with it. And if you guys remember when I started rallying, I guess like 6 years ago, in the Franken Saab, like an old rusty red beat to crap, like just a trash pile. And it was ugly as sin. And I kept it that way on purpose because I like ugly cars. And struggled. I think I DNF'd my first 5 events, like mechanical DNFs. And but I learned a ton about how to prep a car, how to get a car there, the logistics of it, and was just so lucky to find so many great people in rally who were able to point me in the right direction. And part of that was having a cool car that everybody wanted to look at and everybody wanted to talk about. Everybody's got some story about, all the old timers anyway. All the young guys on their Subarus, they didn't give a shit about me. But the old timers all loved that car and gave me lots of fantastic advice.
So being a car guy, I have a few questions. You said that you had an old Renault. What kind of Renault was it?
My first Renault was a 1985 Renault Encore with the 1.7 liter. So it was like, but there was lots of Renault 5s back then, the Le Car as they call them in North America. And so the Renault 5 Turbo was my dream car as a kid. And of course the Renault 5s that raced spectacular little cars, but never really got a chance to get off the ground. But I'm a big fella. You know how that is, Keto. You're a big fella.
Yeah.
And so I don't fit in those little cars. And so, you know, I have a lot of cars from the 70s and 80s that I absolutely love and would love to race and would love to have. But I don't fit in them. It's just not a reality. Like, I would love to, you know, race an old Renault Alpine. I would love to race an old Lancia. But I don't fit in these cars.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you still have your Saab?
I sold all of my Saab stuff. I have been on a serious cleaning spree of reducing the clutter in my life and reducing the sources of stress. And, you know, so I very much changed my philosophy around owning cars. At one point I had too many cars to count, and I know you probably have the same disease, you know, somewhere between 16 and 20 odd cars. I don't even know where half of them are. And, you know, I've been slowly but surely getting rid of them all. And so my Saab is a real, you know, close place in my heart, and I really wanted to keep it, but just don't have the space. Like, my wife says I can own all the rusty, crappy old cars that I want, but I just can't keep them in the yard. And that's fair. That's fair. So, you know, I had a space where I was storing a bunch of them, and then I had my Saab stored out at Heenan's house, as you know, as a rally car legend. And so I've sold them to a good friend of mine in Ontario, who I'm confident will bring them back to life and get them out on the stages again. Because the reality also is you know, I love these old cars. Sure, I'd love to race a Renault Alpine. I'd love to race a Renault 5, you know, Group B car. Those cars would all be a ton of fun. But you know what? They're not fast. They're not good cars. They're kind of crappy.
You're not in comparison to modern stuff. There's kind of the old adage that like a 90s Mustang gets walked on by a modern minivan.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the kids in it.
Yeah. And that's a reality. And now that I've been racing my R2 for a long time, you know, between you and I, I'm looking at stepping into an R5 and seeing what that's like. But I'm a little bit scared. It's a lot of car. And we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. I mean, but the R2 that I've been driving, that Ford Fiesta R2, is such a spectacular machine. It's you know, it's not built by a bunch of yahoos in their garage in Spokane. It's a proper engineered, professional. Malcolm Wilson built it. You know, it's an M Sport car. It's ready. It's a tank. You can bang that thing into anything, and it's just so easy to drive. Like it's got with a sequential gearbox, and just like it just screams. And you know, you get in it, you point it where you want to go, and it gets there almost every time. I mean, when I first got that car, it was very, very reliable, but now I've got 20 odd races on it. It's been beat up a little bit. It's time for a full rebuild. You know, and so, you know, I did a bunch of that, and and then it still failed me. Last year was a bad year for me. I had a lot of mechanical DNS, and those are the most heartbreaking of all. Like, if I bang into a tree, if I roll it down a hill, that's my fault. But when it just quits on you, so aggravating.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's funny you mentioned that you have these cars, but you don't know where they all are. We live in the city, and so our limiting factor is they have to have somewhere to go. So it's like the constant jockeying of a parking space.
Right. Yeah, if I want something new, I got to sell something.
Yeah, there's only so much space.
Yeah.
You mentioned the way you got into racing is all the advice you would tell someone not to do. If someone was just getting started, how would you take your experience and pivot it so that you could give them the best advice for getting going?
Well, it would depend on my means, and luckily I have the means. So the way I'd go about it today is I'd walk into one of many shops that are out there that will just rent me a car and just show up. You don't have to worry about prepping the car. You don't have to worry about getting the car there. You don't have to worry about getting it through tech and whether it's going to pass tech, which was a huge source of stress for me the first half a dozen races. Because there was always something like I didn't, read these rules. It's a big thick book, and I don't understand. And you ask questions, and everybody's got a different opinion. And so I would just rent a car. And renting a car can cost anywhere from a few $1,000s to $25,000, depending on what car you're renting. But it's going to be well prepped and ready. All of that end of it, and then you can just concentrate on showing up for the race, getting your notes ready, creating that rapport with your co-driver, and getting that car to the finish every stage. But that's can be a relatively expensive way to do it, and so people think, oh, I'm going to build my own car. I'm going to do it for $2,500. No, you aren't, and then go out there. And so, but the reality is even just like basic safety equipment for a car, even if you're buying some of it used. You need, fire suit, Hans, a helmet, and then, a roll cage. You're not getting a roll cage done for less than $2,000. That's safe, if not 3 or 4 for a really good one. And there's some really great cage builders out there, and there's nobody more important than a good cage builder, because this is dangerous shit, and you're flying, and your cage is everything when you need it. So, I'm going to weld my own cage. I learned how to weld on YouTube, and I'm going to get at it. No. So by the time you get all the safety equipment into a car, you're looking at $4 or $5 grand, and then the actual cost of the car. And I guarantee you, if you build your own car, you will absolutely, unquestionably DNF on your first event.
Okay.
Right. And so you do, and my math is always like dollars per mile of stage, right? And so if you can get to an event for $5 grand. And then once you get to that event for $5 grand, which is a pretty good deal, because even like all the safety equipment, the car, the prep, the fuel, the tires, and then you have hotels, gas to get there, food for all your crew, and da 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 da. So if you can do, like, even the most grassroots teams out there, like, guys who are just bringing their buddies and have most of the equipment, and so let's say you pay for the car. You paid for your safety equipment. You paid for, you got a bunch of tires hanging around. You got a bunch of, then you're still looking at fuel, hotels, and, entry fees. If you can get out of a weekend for $3 or $4 grand, you're doing really, really well. But like, I've done some big races, Mexico, Monte Carlo, big WRC events, and those, you're not doing that for $5 grand. You're not doing that for $25 grand.
No. Well, and I think often people don't calculate their time into the costs. Your time is valuable. Yeah. And if you don't calculate that in, you're spending so much more.
Yeah. Or even travel. I mean, I'd probably spend $3 grand getting to and from a couple races.
Yeah.
Just easily from back with truck and trailer.
So we'll get back to the technical, helpful questions. I want to hear about Monte Carlo and Mexico and WRC things. You just on a whim were like, hey, I'm going to do these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do. Hey, that'd be fun. All right, let's go. I am super lucky to have a spectacular co-driver who helps me with all of these logistics, because let's be frank, I am organized is not what I do best. And so if it was up to me to organize a trip to Monte Carlo and get all those logistics together, it just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. And so found a place in France that would rent us a car that qualified for the race, booking flights, and then even just getting that, like that kind of stuff. Okay, great. I'll write a check. Here's my credit card. Get us there. And then once you're there, that's when the real logistics kick in. And that was the part of the first few events. And people are always like, oh, I'm going to build a car. It's going to be fast. I'm going to go out and I'm going to kick David Higgins' ass first race out, right? No, you're not. You're going to be lucky if you finish. You're going to be lucky if you start. The amount of time and effort it goes into of like understanding the route book, knowing where you're supposed to be, when, a driver's meeting is and who's supposed to be there and what these weird things everybody's saying really mean. Like, just, it's so stressful, the first race of just be where you're supposed to be. You know, talking about Monte Carlo, you know, we got there and we're going through recce, and it's like, and so between the start of Monte Carlo week, because it's a week, to the end, we put 5,000 kilometers on between the recce car, the rental car, and the actual race car. 5,000 kilometers over the course of a week. Like, and it's spread out across multiple countries. And, you know, and you don't know any of these roads or these turns, or like, you know, once you've done an event 2-3 times, like you talk about an event like Oregon Trail or Pacific Forest Rally here, you know, events that I've done 6 times. Yeah, I know where I'm supposed to do. The co-driver tells me where I'm going, but like he's telling every turn, and you're not just taking the highway and take this exit and boom. It's like, no, down this road like this and over like this. And there's like a little, you go around a corner and there's like a little dirt road and you got to turn on that and there's no sign. And, you know, so you got to use your little odometer to know exactly where you are. Like, it's complicated stuff. Like, if you can get to your race and get to every stage and only check in late a few times and get to the end of every stage in your first race, you're laughing. And so with a race like Monte Carlo, especially, like, it is a logistics nightmare. And if I didn't have Shane telling me where to turn and when to turn and allowing me not to worry about that stuff so that I can worry about keeping the car on the road, it's a huge step up. And the same thing goes with you know, prepping for your first event. Those first 6 or 8 races I did, I was like, when I get to the start line, I'm exhausted because I spent the whole week getting my car. I was up till midnight every night, getting my car ready, getting everything going. And then we do recce. I got to take the car to tech myself. We got to go through all of that stuff. We got to set up service, me and my buddies all by ourselves. And so all of that stuff takes time, takes effort, takes way more time than you think it does. And then so I'm so stressed out about all that stuff. I'm so exhausted trying to keep up with all of that stuff that, you know, by the time the race starts, I was exhausted. Like, the first time I rented a car from Rocket Rally Racing and didn't have to worry about all that stuff, it felt weird when I got out to the start line. I'm like, normally I'm falling asleep right now. Like, I feel ready to go. This is weird.
I'll bet they were worn out, though.
Yeah. They're not dealing with me.
So I got a question for you. So when you went to go race over there, I know the U.S. and Canada are a little different. You guys are a lot closer tied to FIA. Yeah. Did you have to get a FIA competition license or a special license to race over there? I mean, I'm just assuming just any old Joe Blow wasn't going to show up at Monte Carlo and be like, hey, I got next.
And again, so the first WRC event we did was WRC Mexico. Mm-hmm. And again, huge thanks to Shane, or we wouldn't have pulled it off, of figuring out what licenses we need. So you need your Canadian license, racing license, or American in your case, and then you need to go to the sanctioning body for your country and go to them and get an FIA license, and that requires you to, so to get a Canadian license, you got to take a first aid course, you got to have a medical exam to prove that you're not about to have a heart attack in the car. And then when you do your FIA, you even need a more stringent medical exam, an EKG, all kinds of the stuff that you need to do. I can see my arms work, get the doctor to verify all of that. And then you get your FIA license. You need an international driver's license. You need a letter of permission to compete from your country's sanctioning body. So you need to have all of this stuff together, plus have a car that's WRC FIA homologated. Mm-hmm. There's the famous story of the guys showing up at Mexico in a BMW they bought on Craigslist and da-da-da-da. That doesn't happen anymore. That was, and they raced national. It was very different than it is now. So we I drive my R2, and so I rent an R2 in Mexico. Great guy there, Matt's Hammerland and Hammerland Racing, great people who really helped us through that whole process, and are locals to Lyon, and we're able to take all that stress out, because I went to the FIA tech inspection. Oh my, they're out there with little calibers measuring the thickness of your mud flaps, and if your mud flaps are too thick, you don't race. They go through everything super, the tech inspections, I go up to Keto and I show him my car and he's like, yeah, it's good. You know my car, it's good. they look through this thing. Yeah, we check your belt. You got the little pin in there. You're good. And like, that is not how FIA goes. It's serious stuff. So, and then even just like getting to Mexico, and then you got to go to some weird booth in the middle of nowhere at a very particular time, and Andreas Mikkelsen is in front of you, and you got to have this big stack of all this paper, and like, oh my God, there's Seb Auger, and he doesn't show up for tech inspection, like, or he's, everybody's got like, I think M Sport had 180 people with them in Mexico to support like 5 cars. It's an incredible amount of people, and it's just me and Shane, and like, like, we were definitely fishes out of water. When we went to Monte Carlo, we were supposed to go to a driver's meeting, like a safety briefing for the Rallye safe stuff, and just screwing around and just exhausted, and we forgot about the meeting. Okay, him. And so we didn't go to this meeting, and then we're like, oh my God, we're not going to get to race. Like, this is a mandatory meeting. You miss a driver's meeting, you're not going to get to race. So we had to go and find this weird thing. We went to this person and apologized profusely. And I think, and this is the only reason we got to race that weekend, is because I didn't even realize at the time who we were talking to, but it was fucking Michelle Mouton. Oh. And so I'm in there, telling Michelle, and I didn't realize at first who she was. But she's the safety person for the FIA. And I'm like, oh, we missed this meeting. And she's like, why did you miss this meeting? And I said, what are you going to do? My co-driver's an idiot. And she's like, yeah, we're right. And then she let us in. Because I guess she identified, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, what are you going to do? Co-drivers, right? And so, luckily we were able to race.
That's amazing.
Next time,
we realized, I think Michelle Mouton just gave us shit.
Next time, start out by telling her how much you love Audis.
Yeah.
And we got distracted, so it's really cool Audi.
Yeah. Well, I was driving a Renault, so at least we were driving a French car. That helped.
There you go.
Right. She's like, I'll take a video of you. So I'm curious, you talk about Shane, you talk about your co-driver. How did you guys start working together? I think that is sort of often an undervalued piece of this whole puzzle.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I love to give co-drivers a hard time because they deserve it, but they're a different breed of people than the drivers. And the joke is always, you look around at any kind of turnaround stage where we're all hanging around waiting for the Ketos of the world to get their shit together and open the stage back up. And the co-drivers are all kind of huddled in a corner, looking at each other, kind of writing things down, comparing notes and times, and all the drivers are like, yeah, talking about going wild. Yeah, exactly. And so Shane and I shared a garage here in Vancouver, and he had a mechanical shop, and I rented some space for him to screw around with my cars and build my cars. And so he was watching and interesting that, watching me go through a whole bunch of real shitty co-drivers and some good guys who wanted to figure it out. But I mean, it's a very particular disease to be a co-driver. And my first few co-drivers, we're having a good time in the car together, and we'd have a good time, and that's really important because you spend like Shane and I putting 5,000 kilometers on a car over the course of a week in Monte Carlo, and you're literally this far away from each other, and we get words were exchanged, repeated more than a few times. Shane and I have definitely had enough of each other more than once, and but you let it go and you do it. And what's really important is that he thinks my fart jokes are funny, and I think his off-color sexist humor is occasionally funny, and we get to where it is, and the second that light turns green, it's business time. There's no fucking around. Like, that's when you turn it on, you turn it off, right? We're having a good time, we're doing recce, we're making jokes, and then boom, we're racing cars. And this is serious. Like, if something goes sideways, something goes sideways. And Shane, but that's in the car. And so you need to pick a co-driver that you can spend that amount of time with. I've had some co-drivers that are less so. And so it's like, they're a fine co-driver and they're great when the car comes, the light goes on, and that's fine. But it's like, it's just so much time. Like, if you're not having a good time, why are we here? So, having that rapport with someone and having that right person. And so Shane, the first time he ever co-driver was with me, He sits co-driver for a couple other people, but we spent a lot of time. And the thing about Shane is he takes it really seriously, and he puts the time and he puts the effort in, not just before the race, helping with all the logistics, because one of the good co-drivers' core jobs is babysitter. And so making sure I have my passport and I didn't leave it on the plane, and I have my license and whatever. And it's like, and I'm not allowed to hold on to that stuff. It's like the minute it's like my wife passes me off to my co-driver, and then he takes me from there, right? He holds on to my passport. He holds on to my FIA license. He holds on to the paperwork. He holds on to the directions to the hotel. He, arranged for the recce car. Otherwise, who knows what kind of weird car I rented, right? Mm-hmm. And so getting all of those logistics together, and then also, doing recce and writing those notes down and having a good system. And then the amount of time, the night after recce, co-drivers sit in the hotel room for 4 or 6 hours, cleaning up those notes, getting everything right, making sure they're all organized, putting all their little pink and blue and yellow tabs on everything to get them all organized. And then once you're on stage to deliver them at that cadence and really know your driver. And he controls my pace, right? Like at the pace he puts those notes out, and he knows my limits. He knows when I'm under them, and he knows when I'm over them. And he knows when that was a squirrely corner because it was just softer or looser, or that was a squirrely corner because you're going too goddamn fast. And to say to me, dude, like, take it down, think about the whole race. He knows where we are. He's keeping track of our times and everything, and knows whether we're ahead and whether we need to be pushing right now, or like, because once that light goes, the red mist hits, and I'm just giving it no matter what. Right? It's like you go into a stage, it's like, oh, we got a minute on our next competitor, we're just going to take it easy. Never happens. Like it's flat out every time. And so he's able to pull me back and settle me down, and he knows when something happened, or when you pass some car on the stage, you see a triangle, you see this car, and it's like, oh, that's Trevor. I wonder what happened. And he's like, shut up and left too.
Right.
That's hilarious. So great. I want to get on to actual technical questions, but first I just want to share. So I was not familiar with Rallye. I got started in all this because of keto, and I just jumped in, and organizationally I can handle a lot of things. So I just started helping out, and so we run Rallye sprints, which don't have the time controls like stage Rallye. And I think it took until our 3rd sprint for me finally to learn that all those weirdos with their watches standing around asking me all these questions all the time, they were driving me nuts. They're the co-drivers, and that is literally their job. And we don't have those same time controls. And I was like, oh, they're so high maintenance.
Oh yeah. They all have 2 watches. They got this watch, in case this watch breaks. I have this watch, and I also have a watch in my pocket just in case I forget.
Someone finally explained to me. They were like, in stage Rallye, like, we have to check in. I was like, oh, didn't know that.
Yeah. And if you screw up, and like if I do something wrong and we end up, doesn't matter how much we're winning the race by, how much we're losing the race by, but if you do something that gets a penalty where you like check into something late or whatever, and I'm like, whatever, we're 10 minutes behind because we're in a bush for 10 minutes, right? And no, co-drivers is like, because they when they look at the scores, when they look at the data, they're looking at different stuff than we are. We're looking at stage times and who's winning, who's the cat. They're looking at who got penalties so they can make fun of their other co-driver buddies. But what happened there? You checked in 2 minutes late. And the worst one is if you check in early. Because if you check in early, that's 100% the co-driver's fault. And that's embarrassing. You don't do that.
I would love to hear about how you learned to call your notes and how you've developed the rapport with Shane that makes it so he can help control your pacing.
That's a good question.
Practice. I mean, my very first event, Martin Burnley was kind enough to hop in the car with me and had some notes. Because I literally, my first event, I didn't even really know what pace notes were. Like, I'd heard of them. I know they got a guy who says things, and he's saying things, and I'm like, what do these even mean? Like, and so he taught me what they all meant. And like, he'd be like, because we were using somebody else's notes that he had. And he'd be like, left 6, 70, right 5. And I'd be like, 70, what does that mean? And what it means is the distance, right? And I was like, is that how fast you want me to go around the corner? Because I don't know if I can go 70 around that corner. And so we figured it all out. And then, you know, you know, you begin to get a system, and there's a bunch of basic systems out there that everybody follows, kind of like, you know, the typical one is kind of 1 to 6, with 6 being a soft corner and 1 being a hairpin. And those are generally tied to what gear you would go around that corner in if you had a proper gear ratio. That's the Colin McRae system. Colin, you know, really developed that system. Now, and then there's pluses and minuses. Now people do a lot of like 1 to 10 or 10 to 1. So there's different options out there. But at this point, every driver develops their own shorthand. And so I have a lot of cue words to me, like, you know, care, caution, tidy. These all mean very different things. And even to different drivers, they'll mean different things. Like to me, you know, tidy means like just keep an eye on the road. It's a weird little corner. Something could happen. It means just pay a little bit of extra attention and don't fuck around. Don't be trying to take every square inch of the road. You know, care means don't screw this corner up or you're going to break something. And then caution means if you screw this corner up, we're all dead. So maybe slow down a little bit. And then there's other ones like slow or stop. You know, like if there's a, like, you know, slow over crest into something else, then that means slow in a rally car. You know, you're on recce and you're like, oh, this is a bit of a sketchy corner. I better go slow through here. And so, but slow in a rally car is about 80 kilometers an hour, you know, like you're over a crescent. I don't know. It's like, so you think you're going to go slow, but then when you're in race mode, slow is slow. And then another cue is stop. That means when you come over this crest or whatever it might be, or through this little bit, like come to a complete stop. And a complete stop in a rally car is about 50 kilometers an hour, right? And so it's like, you know, you do it so you feel like you were stopped when you went around that corner or over that crest. But, you know, when you're in the car and it's race time, that's pretty fast. But now we have a bunch of those kind of shorthands, and, you know, into and then, you know, these are all different cues as to distances between corners or how the two corners tie together, or, you know, don't go wide or in or very in or mid or flat. Like these are all cues to me that allow me to go faster and faster. And for the first dozen or 15, 20 races, it was just about getting the corner speeds right. And now if I pull up my old notes for a race that I haven't done in a few years and we try to use them on stage, they're garbage. Like they're so inconsistent, and just calling the corners and like, you know, the difference between a 3 and a 5 is massive, but, you know, it takes a certain amount of time and experience to really get good at that. And then now that I've got the corner frequencies down, then it's about how do they tie into each other? Where on the road do I need to be? When can I push hard? When do you not want to push hard? And getting all of those keywords into your words, it's just experience. And in America, you guys have it particularly challenging because the organizers supply you with Jemba notes, which are and so people just follow those and clean them up a little bit, or some people don't even recce. And I don't recommend that. I don't think that's, whereas in Canada, you always have to write your own notes from scratch. And so for a lot of races, like, you know, Oregon Trail is a great example of it. You know, I've done that race 4 or 5 times, and my notes get cleaned up year after year after year. Very disappointed that, you know, we didn't get to run it this year, but, you know, my notes for that race are spectacular. Like they are so cleaned up. They're so perfect. And we go through them, and recce's a lot easier now as we're making maybe 6 or 10 changes on a stage as opposed to writing a whole set of notes from scratch. And, you know, you talk about a race like Monte Carlo, you know, here in Canada, we generally get a kilometer per page. Like every kilometer has a page of notes on it. In Monte Carlo, it's easily double that. There were stages that were 60, 70 pages long, you know, for 25, 30 kilometer stages, because the roads are just so busy and so twisty there. Yeah. Whereas here, like, as you know, Oregon Trail has big, long straightaways, 200 yards. And it's not like in Monte Carlo, if you get a 70-yard stretch, it's like, oh, that was wide open there.
So did you and your co-driver practice before racing, or did you do all your practice at races? Or you guys just like hop in a car and go for a drive up a mountain road and throw notes, or
Yeah, I did that with some of my first co-drivers, and kind of more for myself than anything, and to teach them when I was bringing in new co-drivers, because the first few races I did were with total rookies, like just buddies that we'd come out and have fun together. And so by the time Shane hopped in with me, I'd already done probably 12, 15 events. And so I already had my system down and was able to teach that to Shane. I don't even remember our first event. I think we might have had notes that we were just cleaning up even. So, but yeah, I mean, hopping in a mountain road and doing that. But the real test of your notes is when you do it at speed. You don't know how off, like whether that corner is a 4+ or a 5-. It doesn't really matter when you're going at recce speeds, but when you're flat in it sideways at 110 kilometers an hour, it makes a difference. So we did do mountain roads and figure all that out, but really it's just experience. And I was lucky to have guys like Pat Richard who helped me out, especially later once I started racing with Rocket. Shared with me his view on notes and even gave me some of his notes to look at for different stages when I went and did some races, so that I could just compare. As I'm not able to use his notes are nuts because he's a maniac, but at least I got a sense of how he looked at the road, and that was helpful.
Interesting. So you said early on when you first started, you had somebody who kind of told you, this is what 1 through 6 means and so on and so forth. So would you suggest if somebody was starting out that they couple with a very experienced co-driver who could kind of show them the ropes? Or would you say, because now later you're now explaining to the co-driver what you want called? There's got to be some change over at some point, but would you think a beginner would want an experience and maybe later you pick somebody to train?
Yeah. So if I could go back, luckily, like I say, Martin was great to teach me on my first event. And so that gave me a good foundation. But if you should be so lucky, I mean, there's only a handful of really exceptional co-drivers in North America. And I've been lucky enough to work with some of them. And, sure, yeah, we'd all love if Alex Gelsomino or Craig Drew wants to hop in the car with you, then you don't say no. But, these guys are world class. And then, you have Leanne Unila and Chris Kramer, who I've raced with a bunch. Also very experienced, very talented co-drivers who get what to do. And, I've been lucky to be able to jump in the car with them. And the reality is the great co-drivers get to pick and choose who they want to seat with, and they're going to choose the safe seat. And the guys at the back of the pack who are running the first races, they are most likely to crash, and not in a it seems scary. Like the guys at the front, you think, those are the scary rides. Yeah, those are the fast rides. They're actually not the scary rides because those guys are spectacular drivers. If something does go wrong at the front of the pack, it generally goes very wrong. But, safe cars, good drivers, it's not a big deal. The back of the pack guys, that's where anything can happen. And so, a lot of co-drivers are less likely to happen. Again, thanks to Martin for hopping in with me, who was one of those crazy back of the packers. And I miss the back of the pack. I like those guys. So I would say definitely you want to at least talk to many co-drivers and get them, understand that system. Even playing games like Dirt Rally, the co-driver notes on those games have gotten a lot better. They're still terrible. And I if that person was my co-driver, I'd kick them out of the car because they give some bad calls, late calls, like, oh my God, it's so bad. And but should you be so lucky as to have somebody who's willing to sit with you, you're absolutely take advantage of that. But ultimately you want to find that person that you have the best rapport with. Like, it's not about having, Alex in the car with you. It's about having somebody in the car with you that you're willing to spend that kind of time with, who is empathetic to what you want to do, who understands what your goals for the weekend are, and has helped you and is willing to, because some co-drivers don't babysit, and that's not going to work well with me. Unfortunately, I'm desperately in need of babysitting, or I'll be often like somebody, I'll be in Dave Clark's pit and we're yakking about who the hell knows what. And giving each other a hard time when I'm supposed to be in my car fixing something or in my, so if that's just the reality of me. Like, so if you should be so lucky to have a pro, get it. But really long term, find that buddy of yours who you're willing to spend that time and who's willing to put the time into really learning how to be spectacular at this, because a good co-driver is the difference between a shitty weekend and a great weekend.
So true.
Yes.
One thing I've always been curious of, and your mention of Dirt Rally kind of brought this to mind for me. Did it take a while for you when you were driving to really hear and process and apply the notes?
Absolutely. And it still does sometimes. Like, great example. We were at WRC Mexico a couple of years ago. Dave Wallingford and Leanne were in a couple cars in front of us, and they went onto a stage. Up the road they go. Next car goes. Car after that doesn't go. And we're sitting there like, what the hell? Next thing you know, it's clear that something happened. Somebody crashed. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, word comes back, stage is delayed. There's a crash at kilometer 3. And we're like, kilometer 3, that's when they stopped it. That's like, I think that's Dave and Leanne. And then, of course I get all stressed out and I'm worried. And then Shane says, oh, don't worry. As long as the medical helicopter stays parked right there, because we can see the medical helicopter, it's no big deal. Next thing you know, the fucking helicopter takes off, right? And so I'm like, oh, shit. Anyway, and then they end up canceling the stage and they turn us around and we have to transit to the next place. And I'm like, where's my friends, right? Like, and I was upset. Like, I was fucking crying. And then I'm like, because I don't know, are my friends okay? Like what happened? Like if it's bad enough, the fucking chopper went up and got them. Like are my friends okay? And then anyway, the race goes on. We transit to the next stage. We're at the start of the next stage. I'm trying to put it out of my mind. It is what it is. There's nothing I can do. Like hopefully they're fine. But we don't know. And then we go into the stage, literally 2 corners in, and it's like, a left 3, extreme downhill into a right 2 plus over a super narrow bridge, soft and sandy. I don't remember exactly what the note was, but it was something like left 2, downhill into sandy, caution, downhill, slow into sandy, narrow bridge, don't go wide. Like, it was a whole mouthful of like, watch out, this is a bad, sketchy corner. And I heard none of it. All I heard was something about a fucking bridge. Next thing you know, my front wheel's hanging off the side of the bridge. We didn't make it over that bridge. And get out of the car, and Shane's like, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, I don't know, what are you going to do? Blah, blah, blah. And anyway, get the car back on stage. Spectator, help us get it going. Got to the end of the stage. Circle back, the next loop. Find out Dave and Leanne are, they're okay. But, of course, we all know Dave was in rough shape for a long time, still recovering. But, then the next stage, we do the same stage again. And we come to that same corner. It's like 3 corners in. And Shane calls out this mouthful. And I'm like, is this my corner? Like, did you say all of that last time? And he's like, yeah, I said all of that last time. You just didn't hear me. Like, there's a real, like, if you're not hyper focused on those notes, and because they come fast and they come consistent, and a lot of times, like, you gotta carry them, and that's a good co-driver, because Shane knows how much I can carry. Some co-drivers like a whole bunch of information early. Some drivers like Chris Meek likes his notes late. Like, he likes, like, you watch his onboards, and he's like, Nichols or whoever he's driving with will call those like late. Like, he's in that too by the time you hear about it. So for him, when he hears left 2, that means hard on the brakes immediately. Whereas I'm like, okay, left 2, let me get ready. Let me pick my braking point. Let me figure out where on the road I'm going to be. And I need that time. Chris is like on it. And so everybody's a little bit different. And so it's about building up that rapport with the co-driver. And it's, very unlikely that you're going to hop in with a co-driver or driver and win your first race, because you need to learn that about each other.
Right. So I find myself sometimes when somebody's throwing notes and maybe something happened, I get to thinking about something else, and like suddenly realize, oh shit, I don't know what the next corner is.
Yeah.
So how do you, I mean, I'm assuming this happens to everybody, maybe it's just me, but how do you bring yourself back into the present and like get caught back up.
Especially when, like I say, it's like you've got, you saw your buddies crash in the last corner and you're either laughing at them or worried about them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or just, just as a driver, you're wondering like what happened. Right. And so it's super easy to get distracted. And believe me, it's like I see a squirrel and I'm like, look at the squirrel. And so I'm super easily distracted. But that's part of what I love about driving. It's like, as an entrepreneur with a lot going on, many different businesses and a lot of different projects and a lot of different things, like there is no on time and off time for me. Like here we are, it's Saturday, it's things are going to happen. Like it's 24/7. There's no business hours as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But when I'm in the car, everything's off. Like I'm not taking a call halfway through stage. And so that's the only time that I can be really, truly hyper-focused on exactly what's going on and nothing else. If there's anything else in my mind, we're probably going to crash and die. So there better not be. And you keep that hyper-focus, and that's part of what I love about it. But Shane knows me well enough, and I don't even know that I'm distracted and thinking about something else, but he knows. Mm. He knows me well enough to know that he's thinking about that goddamn squirrel. Like I saw that squirrel and now he's thinking about the squirrel, and to say, forget about the squirrel, left 2. So he knows when to come in and out of it. And then you just got to keep coming back. And we have, because, things happen, like sometimes it's bad notes, right? Like whatever note and whatever reason, or the road changed or the conditions changed or especially on, like big white winter rally, like the conditions can change so dramatically stage night to night. And when you wrecked it, there was no snow on the road and now there's 4 inches of snow on the road. It's a very different event. And so we have a bunch of code words that we use, especially, so I'll say things like next, more, then, or I'll say like, we're trying to edit the notes on the fly. And some co-drivers have a real struggle with that. Like I know with some co-drivers, like I can't give them edits on the fly or they're going to get behind. Whereas Shane, I know what I can say and when I can say it in order to clean that note up for the next pass. And I'll try to say like up or down to just say that corner was more or less severe. I could have gone faster or could have gone slower. And so we have a bunch of shorthand that we've developed over time to let him know that I want to change a note or that I need more. Or he'll give me a whole mouthful, and by the time I go over that crest, get around this corner, and then get down this straightaway, I don't know what that next corner is. He might have told me, but it didn't stay. And that's when I say, what's this, or next. Or usually he knows me. He knows I forgot that. And he knows he gave me 5 things and I can only retain 3. And so when we catch him there, it's like, and he'll say, left 6 into right 5 over crest 100 into left, and then 100 left 2. And he knows by the time I get over that crest into the 100, I don't know about that left 2. And so he'll say, okay, and here's your left 2, or you're in your left 5. And so he will give me reminders as we go that this is where we are and this is what next. So a lot of drivers, if you repeat notes, they get confused and like, oh, like is it this and then that? But, again, co-drivers have a language of like repeat, left, this and there, or this is your thing, or here it comes, or after this is like, after this crest is that. And that's always the biggest stuff, is like knowing when not to end a set of notes on a crest. I'm like, that doesn't help me. I need to know what's on. I need to know how fast I can go over this crest because what's on the other side. And that's a good co-driver. They would never end anything on a crest.
Well, before we wrap this up, I'm kind of curious if you had an opportunity to run any kind of car out on stage, your choice, what would be the one car, even if it meant you were 5'8"?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about running an R5 because I know it's a lot of car, but it's a manageable amount of car, and it's actually, but making this step into 4-wheel drive and a lot of power, I'm super nervous about it, but I'm also super excited because I know, that car is just built for this, and it's so I'm really like, I would say a Fiesta R5 is kind of my dream car to drive right now. But at the same time, those classics of like a Renault Turbo or, Renault 5 Turbo or a Renault Alpine or any of those 70s cars and Lancia 034, like these are gorgeous, like a Delta, Lancia Delta. Like I'd love to drive all of these cars. But yeah, I also know that they're super finicky as hell and I'm unlikely to finish. And if you put one of those into the woods, it's a very expensive trip. Like I would love to race a Lancia Stratos, but no, thank you. I don't like, not even like the cost of replacing that thing, but I'm that guy. There's one less Stratos in the world because of me.
Right.
Right. Well, just so you know, big people do fit in Delta integrals.
Yes.
So,
yeah, we could do that. Chuck Story, I don't know if you know Chuck Story in Ontario, has built one and it's going to be out on Canadian stages hopefully this year.
Oh, fun.
So, yeah, I want to talk to him. I own a 16 valve also.
Oh, nice.
Delta integral 16 valve.
If you want to buy it, we could free up a spot.
Yeah, I got no place for it. Sorry.
So even though we're in a little bit of a weird state with the world, what's next on your race calendar?
Well, after such a tough year last year, like we had multiple DNFs because of engine failure, like on different cars. So it's like I had 3 races, 3 DNFs, all Fiesta R2s, but 3 different Fiesta R2s. Like my Mexican one, my North American, like my Vancouver one, and one that we rented off of Dave Wallingford, his R2T. Engine failure on all 3 races. It was just a terrible year. So I was super excited about coming back this year. We won our first race in Rallye Personnage. And so, off to a good start on the Canadian Championship for the 2-wheel drive championship, which we won a few years ago, but was hoping to give a run for it again this year. But, now you don't know. So, OTR was on the calendar, Olympus, Rocky Mountain, all of those. Like I want to be out racing with my buddies right now so bad. And but here we are, and yeah, we don't know when this is over, so I'm trying not to look too forward of like, hey, we're going to do this one or that one, because we don't know if this is going to be weeks, months, or we're already hunkered down for years. We're up here, I'm planting potatoes, we got radishes in the ground, the zombies can't get us up here, we're out. I'm coming in a boat, so they can't get me here. And
assuming you can swim.
Yes, I don't know.
Zombies can't swim.
It's a really interesting time as organizers because we want to be ready. As soon as we're allowed, we're going to go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to be thoughtful. Like, what are we going to do for the next month or 2 months? So, yeah, it's just
we just don't know. You just got to be patient. Like I say, there's the before time, and the before times are gone.
Yeah.
Like they're never. And believe me, I hope they don't come back. I wasn't a big fan of the before times. It was pretty whack. So hopefully we can change a lot for the better. And I'm actually optimistic that a lot of good will come out of this. I know it's hard. I know a lot of people are really struggling hard right now, and yay socialism. Let's help each other out, because it really needs to be done right now. And as a privileged guy who can do this, I'm trying my best to do extra and stay locked down extra for those people who can't and have to go to work, and just staying out of their way and try not to use their resources unless I have to. But there's a lot of time to pass. So there's the before times that are never coming back, and then there's the after times, and we don't know what the after times are going to look like. We don't know when they're coming. And there's no sense even planning. There's no sense trying to figure it out, because it's all going to change so much between now and then. Just concentrate on the now times. Take care of yourself. Take care of the people you love. Stay home, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see what happens, but it's just the now times.
Yeah. I like to call it proactive patience. Like, you have to stay where you are. You have to do all these things, but you can do some work so you're ready when it's time to go.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ready. You get an event on, I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for your time today. Yeah. Please tell people where they can find you online.
So you can go to the App Store, check out our games, the Trailer Park Boys. Check out our games in the new Cheech and Chong game that we just launched. If you're a fan of the Goldbergs, which is great 80s humor, it's launching next week. Check it out. Eastside Games is the name of the company. And then our weed-based stuff and our Cheech and Chong and all that stuff, we actually just took public on the Canadian Venture Exchange last weekend. So if you're into trading stocks. You can check it out. It's called Leaf Mobile Incorporated. So yeah, lots of exciting things going on. Really happy to have this opportunity to chat with you guys, and check out our games, and hopefully to see everybody out at the next event. Come by, say hi. We'll give you a sticker, and sit in my car and get your picture taken. Whatever. I'm happy to do that, and I'm also thankful to the Rallye world because it expands our little bubbles, right? Like I live in my little left coast liberal bubble bullshit. And I know you guys are deep in the heart of it too. I know you got a big heart, And but it's nice to get exposed to my crazy redneck mid-America friends on through Rallye. And so it's a very diverse group, and it's always great to hear other people's perspectives, as bizarre as some of them might be. And it's a great world of really diverse people, and I'm really thankful for all of the friends and people I've had. The mentors I've had, and people like Taisto Heinonen and Pat Richard, and all of the great people who have taught me so much over the years. And I'm happy to pass that on and help the next guy not make the same mistakes that I did.
Yeah, the Rallye family's great. Absolutely.
Can't be beat.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, guys.